Well, thank you firstly to Christine and also Stuart Bonds for organising this today and giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you all about Australians for Better Government. It's, as Christine said, we launched it at the beginning of the year, and it's aimed at reforming our system of government, reforming the Constitution, optimising the structure of government, and also hopefully getting a high quality of people elected into Parliament as well. So if you want to learn more about us, you can head to australiansforbetter.com. It's got all our proposals on there. It also has our latest prospectus, which you can download and share around if you want to. So I encourage you all to head to that website and learn more about us. I will be speaking about us today as well. I just firstly want to acknowledge some people that are in the room. Firstly, Tony Bowyer, who's our Secretary and Vice President. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Lockray, who's our co-founder. And also Peter Hale, who is on the committee. Now, the four of us are here today. We're going to spend the whole day here. If you want to come up and speak to us afterwards, please feel free to do so. We're more than happy to speak about Australians for Better Government and everything that we're doing. So take the opportunity, have a chat with us, and we can tell you more about it. But before I really get into it, just on a personal note, it's been well over 2 years since I've been to a One Nation event, and I always loved going to One Nation events. For me, it was like going to a birthday party or a Christmas party. You knew that you're going to see a lot of friends there, a lot of like-minded people that you can have really important discussions about the future of this country and policy-driven solutions that we could talk about. When I left One Nation, I was approached by the Liberal Party before leaving One Nation and also after leaving One Nation, and I joined the Liberal Party. And going to Liberal Party events were the complete opposite. I think it was Don Tay that said that hell is not fire and brimstone, it's being trapped in a room with people that you can't stand for eternity. That's probably a good description of how I found the Liberal Party. If you guys, I often hear people say that One Nation supporters are very old. Well, you guys are the spring chickens when it's compared to the Liberal Party. I mean, those guys are on death's door, a lot of them. But there are a smattering of younger ones, and what I would call ex-young Liberals, who are now in their 30s or mid-30s, and they're still hanging around the party purely for their own ambition. And these are the people that are really not there to advance Australia or advance good policy or even talk about good policy. They're only interested in promoting themselves. And they're only interested in the internal battles that are going on within the party. You hear about the factions. I just wrote an article in The Spectator Australia about the factions within the Liberal Party. You can go to The Spectator and read that article. But what I found in the Liberal Party is that there's no discussion about policy and advancing the country. Peter Dutton went to the election with his policy on nuclear energy, and they had no idea about it at all. I come to One Nation events, I can talk to people, I can talk to Stuart Bonds about nuclear, he knows it inside and out. They barely even knew that it was their policy. They don't talk at all about Liberal, they don't talk about Labor, they don't talk about the Greens, they have no idea about the minor parties. They're completely focused on themselves and their internal factional battles. And the problem is, I'm sure it's the same with the Labor Party, the result is you get suboptimal people being put forward as candidates. Either if they're coming out of the Labor Party, they're some Labor hack, or in the Liberal Party, they're a former political staffer. We have to get to a stage where we no longer allow union hacks and political staffers to enter our parliaments. It's okay if you want to be a political staffer, but then go into private enterprise after that, do some hard work there first, then go back into Parliament. I think John Ruddock's a good example of that. He was a staffer for Ross Cameron, then he went into private enterprise, relearned what it's like to live in the real world, then he went back into Parliament. And that's why I'm encouraged to come here today, because I think we have two people in this room, one's Stuart Bonds and the other one's Warwick Stacey, who are a testament of the types of people that we want in Parliament. People with real-world experience that understand the pressures that all of us are under. They're not living in the Canberra bubble, they're not living in the Macquarie Street bubble, they're living in the real world and they understand real issues that we're all facing. Now, when I talk about Australians for Better Government, there's a lot of explaining to do because we're not taught how our system operates or how it's meant to operate. Now, there's something called separation of powers, which is a fundamental aspect of our system of government. However, we have no true separation of powers in this country. Now, when you look at it, we should have three branches of government. You have the legislature, which creates and changes laws. Now, a lot of us are told that the separation is between the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's not the case. It is a bicameral system. They are separate to a point, but they are still within the one branch of government, and that's the legislative branch. One of the other branches, one of the three, is the judiciary. That's the courts. I think everyone pretty much understands that. The one branch I don't think people understand enough is the executive branch of government. Now, if you read Chapter 2 of the Constitution, it details how the executive branch of government is meant to operate, and it says that the Governor-General is meant to exercise the power of the executive branch on behalf of the Crown, as the Crown's representative. Now, by convention, by the Westminster Convention, that we haven't voted on, by the way, it's dictated that the Prime Minister and the government of the day select the Governor-General and then advise the Governor-General. So the situation that you get is that the Prime Minister now not only runs the government in the legislature, but also runs the executive branch of government as well. Where is the separation of powers between those two branches of government? There's none. So basically, there's no accountability, there's no conflict of ideas between those two branches. It's basically the Prime Minister and all his ministers having his way with whatever direction he wants to take the country. Now, what we say at Australians for Better Government is that we should be electing the Governor-General. The Australian people should have a say in who the Governor-General is, not the government. It shouldn't be selected. The Governor-General is not meant to be a puppet. The Governor-General should be elected, and then the Governor-General should run the executive branch of government, so you can have that conflict of ideas between the two branches. The other thing I want to highlight about Chapter 2 of the Constitution is Section 64. Now, Section 64 relates to ministers and how they're selected. Now, there's one line in that section that completely wrecks our system of government, and that's the ministers to sit in Parliament line, which basically states that ministers are to be selected from the suboptimal human beings that are sitting in the legislature, in the Parliament. What we're proposing is that we would like to go to a referendum where we hopefully get support from the Australian people to take a big red marker and put a line straight through that line in the Constitution and basically remove it from the Constitution. That would then allow the Governor-General to go into the broader Australian community and select ministers based on their experience and their industry experience and expertise. So now you could have departments like health, foreign affairs, defence, where you could go out into those industries and find the best people. A good example is the Minister of Defence. Now, the current Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, he's Defence Minister. If you go on the Defence Minister website, it gives a little bio and it says that he's a keen photographer, a local history expert, and a snow dome collector. So I don't know what's going to happen if we're invaded one day. I don't know if we're going to be throwing snow domes at the enemy or not. But what that bio doesn't tell you is that Richard Marles, in his first week at university, joined the local union there and has basically been involved in the union movement right up until he was elected in Parliament. So basically he's a union hack. What does he know about defence? What real life experience does he know of the Defence Forces? And I'm sure Warwick Stacey would have some ideas about some good candidates of who could be a good Defence Minister. But one that springs to mind for me, if you were to delete that line in the Constitution, would be General Peter Cosgrove. He was the son of a soldier. He went to Vietnam, he fought. He was chief of the Defence Forces. He head up East Timor. Now, I don't know if Peter Cosgrove would be willing to be Minister of Defence. Maybe he's past that. Maybe he's too old, and he probably is. But he's just an example of the quality type of person that you could be heading up our government departments if we were to institute that reform. And it could work in health, it could work in foreign affairs, it could work in education. At the moment, we're putting people like Chris Bowen as a minister. What experience does Chris Bowen have in climate change? or the energy sector. And we're getting a situation like we have down in the Illawarra at the moment, where he's proposing this offshore wind turbine factory that's over 1,000 square kilometres, and it's, pardon the pun, it's just fallen over because it's not viable. It's a ridiculous plan, and he's wasted time and he's wasted money that could have been spent in building small modular nuclear reactors that could have achieved the task that they wanted to achieve with their energy requirements. What does Chris Bowen know about any of this stuff? If we were to delete that line, then you could go into the energy sector, find someone with some experience, and there's plenty of engineers around that would fit the role quite well. These are reforms that we could propose to optimise the performance of our government. Another one is, when we're looking at constitutional reform, we want to remove section 51, subsection 26 of the Constitution, which is basically known as the race clause. It allows the government to make special laws based on someone's race. We want to completely remove that and replace it with something that says we're all Australians, we're all equal, and the government shouldn't be making special laws on people's race, sex, gender, whatever it might be. We also want to enshrine things like free speech in the Constitution. That should at least go to a referendum and allow the Australian people to decide whether we enshrine free speech in the Constitution. Another big aspect is what I touched on earlier, is who are we actually putting into Parliament? What types of people are we going to put there? And as I said, the situation at the moment is we're filling up our parliaments with union hacks and political staffers, not real people. I mean, during the election campaign, Stuart Bonds, I mean, that's why I'm glad I'm here today, because I think you have two leaders, and your party is blessed that you have these two men that can now lead your party, at least in New South Wales, into the future. Because they're real world people that understand what's really happening in the world. Stuart Bonds, he's a family man, he works hard, he's in the mining industry, he works long hours, he's probably paying a mortgage, he understands the pressures that everyday Australian people are under. And the fact that he was able to get into two-party preferred at the federal election is an incredible result. And he should be commended for that, not just from One Nation, but for all minor parties, for all minor parties across the board. That's an incredible achievement, and he's done it twice. Now, that is the sort of result that should be rewarded. Now, there's a state election coming up. I don't want to tell One Nation how to conduct their business, but from an Australian for Better Government's perspective, we would look at that and say, well, based on the past results, One Nation is looking at earning an upper house candidate in the New South Wales Parliament. The person that you would want to put at the top of the ticket would be someone that has a proven track record behind them, someone that has achieved results, has proven the fact that they resonate with the electorate, and you would put that person in that role, and that person could potentially pick up two upper house members by generating grassroots support. The problem with the parties at the moment is that they put these union hacks and political staffers and these swamp creatures that mingle in the background as candidates and parliamentarians. You don't have someone like Stuart who's on the ground, speaking to constituents, doing the hard work, doing his social media, working full-time at the same time, doing the hard work on getting elected. Meanwhile, if he was in the Liberal Party, you would have some little swamp creature sitting on their phone in the background, white-handing him, instead of elevating him and putting him on a pedestal and giving him the best opportunity to be elected. And we need to learn the lessons of the failures of other political parties and hope that it doesn't happen to any political party. I don't care what political party it is. It could be One Nation, it could be the Libertarians, it could be the Greens. Even if it is the Greens, who I don't agree with politically, I still want to see them put their best candidates forward. Warwick Stacey, I was at a candidates forum, and he had a Libertarian on one side in Craig Kelly, a Libertarian on the other side in Steve Christou, and he had John Ruddock in the crowd, all gunning for him. And at one stage, he stood up and he confronted them. He was across his brief, he knew his issues, he knew his policy, And he stared them down, and I believe he won that argument. And it was in that moment that I decided to vote for Warwick Stacey. I had no intentions of voting for One Nation, but I saw a man who was across his brief, he knew his stuff, and he was able to stand up and confront people that were having a go at him, which is going to happen in Parliament, and he was confident enough to make his arguments and prove his point. So they're the types of people that we need in Parliament. We need real leaders. We don't need people sitting on committees somewhere or sitting on their phone somewhere being factional hacks. We want real world people that are willing to do the hard work to get into Parliament. And that's really what Australians for Better Government are advocating for. We're advocating for a whole bunch of different issues. As I said, please head to our website, australiansforbetter.com. The four of us will be here. You can come up and discuss some of those proposals with us. I can't go through all of them right now because I'd be here for a week, because this man here, Mr. Kevin Lockray, I don't know what go. He's like a musician. You say, "Oh, give us a riff," and he'll just give you 10 riffs. You say, "Provide some solutions about this," and he'll have 10 solutions. So we can't adopt them all, but there's plenty of them. And please check us out, and please come and have that discussion with us. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and for me to convey Australians for Better Government to all of you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.